Hello and welcome to the next video in a series of how-to videos for Arteco. In this one we're going to explore how to configure storage for cameras after we've added them into Arteco server. So first things first, you want to go under the setup environment and then click on the server and then click the storage tab in the middle pane. And you'll see a page that looks like this. You'll have in the top left, you'll have all of your drives that you have available for storage. The default path will be the one that you chose during installation, or if you receive an Arteco server, the seed drive will be used for the initial recordings path as the default, and you may have additional paths selected for however many drives that you ordered with the server. So here I have 3 different drives that I want to use for my storage. So what I'll do is add them as paths by checking their boxes right here. And that then creates the paths, and as you can see when I click on each of them down in the middle section, none of the cameras are added to them. So there are a few different ways that you can add the existing channels that you've already added here into the storage paths. You can do an auto balance, which will basically just divide up the amount of space by the channels that you have available and put each of the channels into one of the storage drives depending on how much space is available there. So as you can see, there are 3 channels going into the D drive, 3 channels going into the E drive, and then 2 channels going into the F drive. And then with that divided up as we've just done, you can see the amount of assigned space here in this column down on the sources section. And so therefore the F has a little bit more space than the D and E would, because it only has 2 channels compared to the others only having 3. You can see the number of channels that are on each path as well in the channels column in the middle here. And you'll notice also the default path column, which is, remember, the C drive is the default, and you shouldn't ideally have any channels going to that if you're using a JBOD configuration like we have here. But what you may have is, once you did an installation on like a RAID array, you may have just one single path as the default path, and that may be going to your D or E drive, for instance. And that's maybe like a RAID configuration on a hardware RAID. And it's seen by Windows as a single contiguous drive. So you would have your C and then your D or E, and then there would just be that single path for being your default recordings path, and then you don't even have to worry about auto balancing because they'll automatically balance out throughout that RAID array. All right, so once we have all of our cameras going into the right place, we want to click apply. And you'll see a message here saying that any channels that are moved with their paths will be erased if they had any recordings on them. So it's very important that you set this up initially before the server starts recording a lot. And in order for you to properly get those set up first, you want to do the calculations ahead of time. Make sure that you have all of your channels going into the correct drives, and that you have them all spaced out, depending on what resolutions they have. Maybe give them some different assigned space, which we'll talk about here in a second. So I clicked yes to delete the video that was being recorded on the C drive, and the channels go offline and then back online again, you can see in the left. And then now we have all of our cameras recording to our D, E, and F, and none of them recording to the C. Alright, so now what we're going to do is I'll show you a little bit about how to change the delete type for a particular channel. So if you click on one of the paths, and then you have one of the sources here selected, so we have our camera 1. Let's say this camera 1 is actually using quite a bit higher resolution than all the other cameras, and for that reason let's actually use F, so we have more space to use for that. So let's say camera 7 here. Camera 7 is a higher resolution and it has a higher bit rate, so it would need a lot more storage space in order to get the desired retention. What you would do is you'd change the delete type from auto to set, and with changing that to set, it then allows you to change the assigned space value here. So if I want to give this channel, for instance, 1500 gigabytes, then once I click enter here or hit enter, you'll notice that this auto assigned channel for camera 8, it will actually go down in the amount of space that is available. So after I hit enter there, now this camera 8 only has that 269 gigabytes available. So you want to be aware that whenever you're taking any space away from channels that are on the same path by using the delete type set, that you're making sure that all of the other channels that are on that path don't necessarily need as much video. All right, and you can also do that, do the inverse of that as well. So let's say I want to actually give this a set value of maybe only 100 gigabytes because it has like a lower resolution. If I do that, then you'll notice that the assigned space goes up for the one that is set on auto. And if I change this delete type back to auto, it'll just automatically divide up the amount of space on this path, on this F path, by the 2 channels that we have added to it. All right. You always want to have the auto delete set to yes. That way, any of the oldest video will be deleted first before before new video can be recorded. So keep that on yes. And then another filter that you can do that would come either before the assigned space value, or would maybe not happen at all because you have enough assigned space, or because you hit the amount of assigned space first, is the auto delete by days. And auto delete by days, by setting this to yes, then you're able to specify the number of days that you actually want to keep recording for. So if you have a desired retention period of 30 days, then you can change the auto delete by days to yes and the number of days to 30. And then this particular channel, it will either start auto deleting when it gets to the number of days reached, or when the assigned space value is reached. So one of those two first. And you want to make sure to do the calculations beforehand in order to make sure that you're not running into any issues. All right, so that pretty much goes over the basics on how to add your storage. You can definitely always do auto balance if all of your channels are of the same resolution type. So keep that in mind, and thanks for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.